Well, folks, welcome back to the Lanai. It's spring and it's a mess, and it's about time that I got this space in order here. But today's topic is actually the presidency. We have a new president, 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. And one of the first things he's going to have to do is get his house in order, just like I'm going to have to get this Lanai in order. Now, the president's house, we call the bureaucracy. Okay? And for the most part, it's made up of the 15 executive departments, some independent agencies, government corporations, and a few other entities as well. Now, the president can't actually take on the task of getting his house in order if he doesn't understand the structure of the bureaucracy itself. So this first set of videos right here will kind of teach you how we structure the bureaucracy. There's 4 million people that work in the federal executive bureaucracy, and we kind of need to know how to handle that many people. All right, we'll see you there. The first step in understanding the federal bureaucracy is being able to see it. If I can see it, I can understand it. So I made this nice little visual here for you of the structure. Now, before we dive deep into the structure, let's just remember that I said federal bureaucracy. So we have a national bureaucracy, but we also have 50 state bureaucracies. So you can imagine this pyramid right here behind me replicated in every state as well, because we are a federal system. All right, but let's dive deep into the structure. So once we understand the structure, once we can see it, it is easier to understand. So right here, I have the pyramid of executive power. And at the pinnacle of the pyramid of executive power, we have POTUS, the President of the United States. So you can see that the president resides at the top tier of the pyramid. And then going down the pyramid, here's what we have. Closest to the president, the closest advisors to the president, we have the EOP. So again, if you want to sound cool on the streets of South Minneapolis, we don't say the executive office of the president. No, we say, are you down with the EOP, the executive office of the president, right? So there you go, right there, the EOP. Okay, now the EOP, the key thing there is their number one purpose is to support the president's agenda. So they have one loyalty only, and that is to serve the president's agenda. So what are the elements that make up the EOP? Well, primarily the ones that you need to know are the WHO, the White House office. Okay, so those are the closest advisors, both physically and personally, politically, to the president. They often have offices right there in the White House. If you ever watched the TV show The West Wing or heard people talk about the West Wing, they're referring to the White House office. Okay? Now, the White House office plays a variety of roles, and you can read about that in the textbook. There are 2 positions in the White House office that you should be aware of. Number 1 is the Chief of Staff. So the Chief of Staff organizes the president's agenda. They are the primary access to the president. You can't get to the president without going through the Chief of Staff first. Okay? And then on top of that, you have the press secretary. So the press secretary is the president's voice to the people. They get in front of the press, they answer the questions, and they state the president's agenda day in and day out. Okay, they're communicating what the president wants to the rest of us. Okay, so press secretary and the chief of staff. Now, also in the EOP here, just speaking to this front face of the pyramid, okay, is we have the OMB, which is the Office of Management and Budget. Okay, now the Office of Management and Budget is the primary tool by which the president controls all elements of the bureaucracy. Okay, so the Office of Management and Budget does 2 things. Now, any element of the bureaucracy down here, any agency, office, administration has to propose a budget, and that budget gets proposed to the OMB. So they're making sure that the budgets, the money that's being spent down here lower on the pyramid, helps the president, attain their agenda and their policy goals, or the direction they want the country to move. So if you're an agency whose mission that doesn't really align with the president's, you're probably going to see your budget cut. Okay, and the president's going to shift monetary resources to those agencies that do align with his or her agenda. The other thing the OMB does is anybody down here that proposes a new rule, a new regulation about how the law is going to be executed, it has to be approved by the OMB. Again, to ensure that it aligns with what the president wants and their agenda. Okay, so that's the executive office of the president. And just remember that their primary goal, their sole goal, is to serve the agenda of the president. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump all the way down to the base of the pyramid. So we're on this side right here, just this front face. We'll talk about the other faces at different times. Okay, but right here, this green area is the executive departments. And there are 15 executive departments. Right here, I just have one slice highlighted. It's the Department of Health and Human Services. And then we'd have another slice that runs from the base all the way up to this level right here. That would be the Department of Treasury, the Department of State, okay, the Department of Justice. Okay, they all have their own little slice that runs all the way up. You visualize it like that, okay? And so I want, as an example here, I just have the Department of Health and Human Services. And then here in the middle, I remind you that that department isn't a single entity. Okay, it's made up of various administrations, various services, various agencies, offices, and bureaus. Okay, so they're not monolithic. It's not a single group of people. It's made up of these elements right here. Okay, now the higher up you are, boom, 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 the higher up in the pyramid you go. Now you'll note that the little star right here is every department, every executive department is headed by a secretary. And that is like 14 of the 15 departments. The person in charge we refer to as the secretary of that department. So you have a secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. And all the secretaries serve on the president's cabinet. Okay, so there are at least 15 people in the president's cabinet. That's going to fluctuate. We'll talk about that in a second. There's one department where we don't refer to them as the secretary, and that's the Department of Justice. The head of the Department of Justice is called the Attorney General. But the Attorney General, like the other 14 secretaries, is a member of the president's cabinet. Okay? So, and then if we go over this way, right here, before we get into some of these more interesting elements on this pyramid, you'll note that there is this swath over here that I've labeled independent agencies. Okay, now, when it's on the face of the pyramid, what it means to be independent is it means you're independent of departmental control. You're not housed within one of the departments, and you're not being supervised by a secretary, okay, or other, bureaucratic entities. Okay, you are separated out and given independent status. You have your own budget that you actually directly give to. You report your budget, you propose it to the Office of Management and Budget directly, rather than going up the channels on this side. So some examples of very important independent agencies are the Environmental Protection Agency, NASA, and the CIA. Okay, they're all outside of departmental control, independent of departmental control. Okay, now before we start talking about these interesting elements over here, let's jump over to this face, right? Just the information I have right here. What you need to understand is that the president controls the top part of the pyramid. So really from here down to here, you get your job via presidential appointment. There are about roughly 3,500, a little bit more, jobs up here at the top of the pyramid that the president appoints you. The president taps you on the shoulder and says, I want you to work for me and help me achieve my goals for the country. That's how you get your job. About 1,200 of this 3,500, you then need to be confirmed by the Senate as well. So not only are you appointed by the president, but you need Senate confirmation. Okay. What we need to understand is that every 4 years, what that means is the whole top part of the pyramid is shifting out and being replaced by a new group of people. Okay. If the presidency changes, all of these people that work at the top of the bureaucratic pyramid are going to be different. And they shape the goals and the strategies and how the law is being enforced from the top down. Okay? The bottom half of the pyramid, so from here on down, you get your job by passing a test. It's called the civil service examination. You can apply for these jobs, and part of the application process is to take the test. So this base of the pyramid we refer to as the civil service, okay? And you get your job based on merit, based on education, and you advance through the ranks. You move up the pyramid based on your education level, based on your experience, based on your skill. But you can only get so far up the pyramid. If you want to cross this line right here, you have to be appointed by the president. Okay? That's how that works. So some other elements here that you need to know, be aware of. You might ask yourself, why do we have this purple line here separating the EOP from the cabinet? There's two reasons there. If you're a member of the cabinet, you have two loyalties. You have a loyalty to the president that appointed you and to their agenda and to their goals for the nation, but you also have a loyalty to the department and the mission of the department that you serve. And sometimes those two loyalties can be contradictory. They can oppose each other. What the president wants to do and the mission of your agency, your department, might run into conflict there. Okay? So just note that that's one of the reasons for the line. The other reason for the line is that if I'm a member of the EOP, I often get my position just by presidential appointment. I don't need to be confirmed by the Senate. Okay, there's a few exceptions to that. But if I'm working down here, if I'm below that line, I'm going to be appointed and confirmed by the Senate. Okay? All right. There you go. We'll move on to the next phase. Oh, wait a minute. You're like, what about that question mark? Okay, so starting with this star right here. The star is the heads of the executive departments. We call them secretaries, except for in the case of the Attorney General, which is the head of the Department of Justice. Over here, on this side, we have a question mark. Okay, because if you are the director of one of these independent agencies and your mission aligns with the goals of the presidency, like the new president might be an environmental president. And they might, the mission of the Environmental Protection Agency might resonate with the president. And in that case, they might elevate the director to what we call a cabinet rank position. So temporarily, that person is also going to serve in the president's cabinet. So the president has some authority to elevate people to his cabinet. Okay, now the cabinet traditionally is supposed to advise the president, but just note, that's another difference for the line right here. Is the cabinet, yes, they meet, yes, they advise the president, but primarily their job is to execute the law. Okay, they're putting the laws of the country into action. If you are in the EOP, if you're above this purple line, you're not involved in the execution of the law. You're involved in advising the president, helping the president strategically achieve his agenda and his policy goals. Okay, you're not involved in the actual execution of the law, the day-to-day mechanics of making sure that the laws of this country are being followed. All right, next, we're going to talk about this base of the pyramid. But first, I'm going to have to illustrate it.